and let me introduce my guest, and we get into discussing the matters that we have tabled for discussion. My guest, a regular panelist and editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Abdul Malik Kwekubako, is here, as always, with his loads of documents. I had the privilege of some documents, and I thought I had it alone, exclusive. I just showed it to him. I asked him, do you have this? He said, yes, he's got them. I said, look, okay, so I can't beat you to this game. Never. Alexander Kwamina Afenyomarking. He's MP, member, Public Accounts Committee, Defense and Interior Committees of Parliament. He, too, is a man in full white. And I asked if he was in some celebratory mood. He says, not exactly, but he wants to wear white because he feels good when he's in white. Good morning and welcome. Right. Randy Abbey is host, Good Morning Ghana, Metro Television. Of course, you know, there will be good reason he is here on the show this morning. He has very good views that you would like to enjoy on the matters that are coming up, but more particularly when it comes to sports, soccer. It is important that we don't miss him. Thank you very much for joining us, Randy. We'll be joined shortly by Martin Pebu. He is a lawyer and a rights crusader. So let's get started. And we want to try and deal with the matters we have tabled, one of them very briefly, and then move on to other substantive matters. Not to suggest that this is not a substantive matter, but there's a man. He's the boss of the Ghana Maritime Authority. He has spent over 1 million Ghana cedis of your money to turn his 2-bedroom residence into 4 bedrooms. He's got it fitted with a dozen of air conditioners. He says he deserves more than what is there. It should be more air conditioners, and it should even have separate places, more than a 4-bedroom, house to live in, because that is what befits his status. And that there are other CEOs of government, institutions that get better than he is getting. His name is Kwame Owusu. Now, beside that, he's spent, again, your money in throwing a party. Initially, the allegation was that he threw the party for only 8 people. He's come to say that it was more than 8 people. It was about 500. They had estimated for 500 people. And that it is not true that it was 135,000 that was spent on this party, but that it was 115,000 that was spent on this party. Guess what? His hotel is the hotel he proudly admits, the money was paid to do this job. So question is, people are asking, is President Akufo-Addo truly committed to protecting the public purse with this man still in office? Okay, so start with Kweku. The expectation of some members of the public was that immediately this information became public, this man would have lost his job. What do you say?
Well, I'm not sure you are suggesting that because there's a publication to the effect that somebody is indulging in conflict of interest situation or maybe misapplication of public funds, automatically the person ought to be dismissed from office. I'm not sure that's what you're suggesting. I'm sure you, being a lawyer, would want a situation where the allegations are subjected to some examination or re-examination by an appropriate body upon which a decision will be taken. I believe that is what the kind of system we operate requires. So I'm not too sure about this thing, about the mere fact. Otherwise, look, we can get situations where a host of allegations could be generated against public officers, and automatically they all have to exit. I mean, it would be I see that as an absurd situation. So That's not what I believe you were suggesting.
Okay,
but
just do this. Listen to him, listen to the man, so that we can say whether or not these are mere allegations put out and these are allegations that are unfounded. So listen to his own confirmation. Mr. Kwame Owusu, Director of the Ghana Maritime Authority. Listen to him.
We would like to also respond to the issue of the authority having $135,000 cedis for end of year party. It is true. There was 115,000 of the cost of the food for 500 people. It is in management records. Whoever is available will tell you when management committee was set up. It's most interesting to know because the Director General has not refuted the allegation that he owns Lock Suites Hotel. So when I see some of you going to the hotel, taking the picture of the hotel, putting it on the social media, in your Facebooks and whatever you may call them, is another journalistic mischief.
Even the same message was sent to Public Service Commission, which had no 8 people written.
So you have an interest in the hotel. If you do, why would you spend
I have
in the same hotel you own? You have an interest.
I have already given your people the information that I own the hotel. Look at the
you are the young man. Your accusation is that you are in conflict of interest. Ms. Osu, if you listen to me, you're having a monologue, Ms. Osu.
And he's so confident that no court has
1 million Ghana cedis that has been used to renovate a 2-bedroom house for the Director General. Construction period pictures, show them. That's a lot of them. Construction period pictures, the auditors were there day and night taking pictures of construction and then came out the building. And let me tell you, that building is now made out of 4 bedrooms of the main structure, the main house. A living room, a dining room, kitchen, a family room, a library, and a basement. An issue has been raised with regard to Director General having 11 air conditions. That I consider mediocrity. In a 2-bedroom house. Where would I put them? The places that I listed to you, each one of them to have an air condition will be 13. So the 11 is not enough. Some Director Generals have a house allocated to them and have even a separate guest house for entertainment. And if this Director General or any other Director General of Ghana Maritime Authority who superintend.
All right, so Kokodas Kwame Owusu.
It doesn't change my introductory remarks. Because in doing his rebuttal or his rejoinder, there were certain elements of the earlier allegations that were rebutted. And he brings in new things.
He substantially confirmed them.
I'm not sure you are getting my drift. Don't let anybody misunderstand me. I wanted to set an introductory basis for my submission.
Proceed.
And it's important I'm allowed to do that.
Proceed.
Very, very important. I'm saying that in general, in terms of the principle, mere allegations made, no matter how many they are, is not a sufficient basis for somebody to automatically be dismissed from office. That's the point I'm making. It is important that that principle is established. And you know, as is said, even by judges.
I'm pointing to you that these are not mere allegations. These are confirmed.
You're not getting me.
Okay.
I've written down things. I want to proceed step
Please
by
go
step.
ahead.
You asked a certain question. Your question was to the effect that you think that based on the allegations that were made, the man shouldn't be in office. The president should have dismissed him.
Okay.
That's not good governance. That's not how governance works. I believe that you have to subject those allegations, confirmed or not, to proper investigations and scrutiny, on basis of which a decision is taken. That's the point I was making.
Okay.
I haven't dealt with any of the specifics, if you've noticed that. So I'm not coming to the specifics. Then we can deal with the issues the way they are. See, I'll tell you something. I like the idea of a chief executive coming out into the public space and making a case for himself relative to allegations that have been made. I would like to encourage a critical mass of that particular situation. And I like the idea that there are journalists and civil society groups around who would pursue that path and encourage, or if you like, compel chief executives to come into the public space and answer questions. That is good for our democracy. Then we go for the specifics as to what is being said and how reasonable those things are. I have a little problem with, I haven't studied this matter very thoroughly, but I've watched a few clips. I think the gentleman's posture and his mode of communication, his tone and things are unhelpful. That hasn't helped his cause. It casts a picture of a certain arrogance, a certain contempt for people who are asking questions. And I think that's not good enough. So whilst on one level, coming out to deal with the issues raised, how you communicate, your body language, everything is critical. That, I think, clearly he's failed. In the little I've seen, I was put off. So that even if he was making sense or trying to make sense, you were not ready to listen. This is a personal reaction.
Okay.
That's the way I saw it. Now let's deal with the specifics. See, you talk about, for instance, a house. Unfortunately for me, I haven't seen the house yet. But you are talking of a house, supposed to be 2-bedroom, now it's supposed to be 4. Some say 5. That is why I raised the issue that I haven't seen the house.
Maybe we should take his word. He says 4.
Which says 4. Now, each room could have an air conditioner. Those of us who have houses or go to friends' houses, especially official residences, because we're not talking here of a private residence, but house, let's take it that way. Each one could have an air conditioner. If you have halls, 2 halls, there could be air conditions in the 2 halls, makes it 6. Sometimes you have a guest apartment facility attached.
Yeah, he describes all the other things.
So you see, 5, 6 air conditions in a house, 4-bedroom, 2 halls, and things, is no big deal. In any case, you don't put all together at the same time. So if you are looking at the question of impact in terms of financials. But I don't know this house the man is talking about. But you see, if you are communicating, and you said, oh, 11, but I even needed 13, and 13, 11 is even below me, you are not communicating. In fact, you are insulting. You are attacking people's sensitivity, considering the fact that we have an economy that is challenged. And I'm not talking of the Ghanaian economy being challenged only today. I'm looking at the general principle. There are thousands and thousands of Ghanaians out there who feel challenged, no matter the situation. So when they hear you talk that way, see, they are not prepared even to sit and ask for the structure of the building and how many rooms and halls. They are not prepared to do that. You got to know how to communicate. So clearly, putting it out, but 11 is even below par. I deserve 13. You've insulted. You've attacked sensibilities and sensitivities.
He says there are other CEOs who have better.
And it is true. That's the kind of culture we have here. It is true. If you go and check the kind of residential and other facilities that we give to see CEOs of big state facilities, I'm telling you it's true. Some of us have been around those places for years. When we're kids, as we grow now, we know. That's what we do. You may check it and realize that perhaps it's unfair, that perhaps they get excessive, but it's true. I don't know about Cocoa Board, Bank of Ghana, State Insurance, and things today, but as we are growing up, and some of our fathers and brothers and uncles were all these people who man this outfit. We used to be going to the houses, so yeah. I know what I'm talking about.
So the government had earlier even indicated those of them who were taking about 80 million, is it 80,000 a month, yes, or over 100,000 a month, was going to cut down on their salaries.
There is no doubt about that. We've over-pampered them over the period. I'm not saying they should be paid below a certain level, because that too can be dangerous. There's the need to strike a good balance. Look at the context of the whole economy and how we are sharing the fruits of our labor. Okay. But there's no doubt about it that if you go elsewhere, it may even be more than what he's talking about.
Okay.
But how do you communicate that? You see, but at the end of the day, what we have to do, and that's what I mean by the real investigations, is to subject this thing he's talking about. For instance, there are people who can do the prestige, or is it architecture,
ESL?
Yes, all those people are available. They have the appropriate expertise to subject that kind of building to the appropriate auditing, technical and financial, and see if indeed the living air conditions there even qualifies to be there. If not, then of course, the need for surcharging comes in. Apart from dismissal, that could be an ultimate sanction. You could still be surcharged for some of the expenditures that you've made if they were unauthorized, even if they were authorized, but go beyond a certain limit. That's what I mean by the proper investigations. Not just what everybody has said and not what he also has said, which can make the court of public opinion come to a judgment. Okay. And already he's been indicted by the court of public opinion based on his own statements, based on what media has put out there. But if you want to deal with him properly in accordance with law and the conditions of service that put him there, so that you don't attract judgment debts,
okay,
you go through a proper investigation, after which you will rely on the findings to deal with him. That's where perhaps you and I were not getting
all right,
on a certain level.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we mean that we shouldn't spend too much time on this.
Sure.
It does appear. Yeah. Don't worry at all. Okay. So Martin. So he actually is threatening to sue people, the journalists and those who brought out the information. We're getting to Christmas, right? Yeah. If he came to your office as a lawyer, will you take his money and sue?
No, this one. There's no way I could do this case at this level, okay? Because as Uncle Kweku rightly stated, I have a fundamental issue with the way he attacked the journalists. He was getting too personal. That's why I was looking at Article 296 and then 23. He's head of an administrative body. I'll be willing to represent him after he has come out to apologize for that very belligerent, bellicose, arrogant posture he put forward. I don't know if he's thinking that it's his personal, the authority is his personal property or what, but please, there's no space for what he did. So first and foremost, he should come out and render an unqualified apology for the way he reacted, the arrogance and everything that he did. But on the substantive matter, I will go with Uncle Kweku that, yes, it's so, it looks obvious.
No, but let's deal with that. Now that he hasn't gone to court yet, we can talk. If he goes to court, we may not be able to talk. I mean, right. So from the facts as we know them now, and the confirmations he gave, they talk about the expenditure on his building. And they talk about how much he's wasted on a party and his own private hotel involved. And they're suggesting conflict of interest. Do you sincerely think that on the basis of those facts so far, he should be threatening anybody with going to court? Will he succeed in any defamation action?
Okay, so let's start with the first one on the matter of the 11 ACs.
Right.
That one he's denied. He's denied. So I don't know so far in the pictures whether this in the pictures show 11, because he's denied, saying that looking at the buildings, it's not possible for him to have 11. So that
no, he's saying that he's got 11 and that he should have 13.
No, the context, the way he was putting it, he's trying to deny. Yeah.
No,
he's confirmed.
He's confirmed 11.
It should have been 13.
And says that it should be 13 instead.
That's why he says below.
It's below.
That's the sense. If I wish we could play it back the way, well, okay, so let me move forward. Because the way, you see, I think he was trying some sarcasm. Let's come in this way. Yes.
No, I think he was confirming.
He's confirmed. Yes.
Maybe let's, I mean,
he did a written statement, which he shared with the press. Yes.
Oh, then that even makes the problem worse, because
it's just a terrible communication.
Yes, that's all. It makes it worse because, as Uncle Kweku even stated earlier, because of the way poverty is such a serious problem in our economy, the mere mention of the figure alone sends people in a certain direction.
So my question to you was a possibility of any success in court.
success in court so far.
If it is speculate.
Yes, let me see.
He's been doing defamation suits.
Yes,
defamation simply means that
he's not seized with all the facts.
We are dealing with the facts as we have them. We don't need all facts. We want the facts as we have them now.
So then, if a journalist publish 11 and he says 11 is true, then that one there is no defamation, because for defamation it must be that a statement has been made and then it reduces the person in the estimation of right-thinking people.
It is false first.
Yes, false, yes. And it reduces the person in the estimation of right-thinking people of society, or exposes him to ridicule, opprobrium, those kind of things.
Right.
Yeah. So if the story is true, then a case of defamation will fail.
No, but let me do a devil's advocate,
Yes.
please.
Yeah.
If a structural analysis of the building is done, and the 11 that have been input there, all ought to be there, can you see that's wastage of public funds? Especially when he doesn't put 11 on at the same time anyway. Nobody does that. It's not a question of two.
It will not be wastage, but will it be defamatory? That you have said wastage and it's not wastage. Will it be defamation?
Good question.
Wow. Oh, yes. If you say it's wastage, when in actual fact it's not, then it would be, because society would have seen him as somebody dissipating public funds. Because, you know, in Article 41, it said that citizens should combat the misuse and dissipation of public funds.
Preserve public property.
Preserve public property.
Okay.
Yes. So if that side turns out to be false, you can make a case of defamation. But looking at it, actually, I think, to be very candid, a case of fair comment may qualify, because it's close enough. You see, because journalists, and you also know the Constitution provides that there should be media freedom and all this. They are helping in the fight against corruption. So if the thing is 11, and then your case is that, I don't put all on at the same time, no, fair comment will cover the journalist. So a case of defamation, this will be a hard sell, very extremely difficult.
Is it fair to ask the question, if the president is really committed to protecting the public purse, that the man is still in office?
That one, I come back to the issue that we must go through due process.
Okay.
Yes, so let's finish. When we finish, we've confirmed that this is what is done, there's been wastage, then certainly he has to go. Okay. Yeah, so let's have it properly confirmed.
All right.
Yes.
And what about his hotel?
The conflict matter.
That is the root of the party.
Yeah, from the answers he's given, he didn't even seem to have cleared the prerequisites to be able to use his hotel, which is that at the time the hotel was being proposed for usage, he would have declared that it is my hotel and then recuse himself.
Yeah,
yes, he came to make he came to make a case for himself, but he wasn't answering that. That's why I said most of the time his posture was attacking journalists. Yeah. So he came to give his defense, and this is the defense he gave. He didn't include clearing the
disclosure.
Yes, exactly. So we will take it that he didn't. If he did, I'm sure looking at the way he came gung-ho and was attacking journalists, he would have stated it.
But investigation will require that we find out whether he did or
made a
not.
disclosure.
But a man who comes to defend himself came to put his best foot forward and didn't.
Okay.
Well,
all right. So
anyway.
so let me have Randy's take on this. Well, like Martin is saying, on that other aspect, by law, if he had made a disclosure of his interest in the hotel and did not participate in the processes leading to awarding of the contract to his hotel to provide the services, then conflict of interest, Yamutu.
You know, Samson, in our private lives, we can afford to talk without thinking. When we get into public service, we cannot afford to talk without thinking. We must think before we talk. And we need to be, you know, I say this because there's a certain group of people in this country who, based on what they believe they have achieved in their private lives, they carry with themselves a certain attitude into public service. And they do not appreciate why certain actions, commissions or omissions on their part ought to be questioned. And ought to be questioned by certain categories of people and in a certain manner. And it is that kind of attitude that creates some of the problems that we're having, especially with this maritime thing. When I heard this, I said, look, for anybody who perhaps is being involved in building or doing properties or anything, you ought to be a bit cautious. and have a lot more detail. Because one, you do not know the state of the property as and when the Maritime Authority procured it or secured it or was given to them by the Ministry of Works and Housing. You do not know, you know, and so to just look at the figure 1 million and proceed to, you know, make conclusions thereof, for me is quite problematic, because you would need some information to be able to determine whether it makes sense or not. I hope you get the point I'm making.
I get you completely.
Okay. So
I'm doing a similar project right now, so I can get you.
So on the basis of the figure alone,
okay,
and you know this issue of a 2-bedroom, now it turns out that it's not just a 2-bedroom, but maybe the property was originally a 2-bedroom and was being converted into a 4-bedroom and all that. So those technical details might give a justification of why that amount of money
had to be spent
on it. Now, if you have the opportunity of telling your side of the story, you do it in a very tidy manner. You tell your story and you help people to appreciate what the issues are. You help people to have a better understanding of what it is, and to even be able to now question those people who put them out and the media houses that you believed maybe ought to have known better,
and
who just went away. Yes. I mean, so you help people to understand what the situation is, to appreciate it, give them a better picture, not to show photographs. I mean, but give them a better picture of what happened. And you would have a lot of people, one, have information, empathize with your situation, and then the aggression will be on those who were carrying the story. But you missed that opportunity. You missed a big opportunity to tell what the story really is.
So from the whole story, as you understand it, is there any basis for a process to discipline?
Well, I get there. I get there shortly. See, on the issue of his hotel, for example, like Martin said, he had an opportunity to tell the story. Oh, due process. The thing went to the board. I disclosed my whatever. And I didn't even take part in the meeting to determine that and all that. And we know that sometimes choice of venue and others are not even things that come up to high management or boards in most cases, unless those they want to involve themselves.
But of course, that would be a curious coincidence.
Yes.
And the question also about other similar leaders like him,
yes,
whether or not they should be interested in thinking about the moral question, the question of propriety, that you are the head of an entity and contracts are going to your private company. And you say that for as long as I will make a disclosure and not participate in the award of the contract, it is okay.
My issue with respect to this is that, look, there are two parts to it. I was dealing with the first part. He could well have disclosed his interest, and his other colleagues on the board or other people in management would have thought that, look, there was no problem with that and could have gone ahead. The second part is whether he exercised good judgment. You know, because I think that in public office, disclosure in cases of conflict of interest is not enough. Sometimes you need to exercise a certain level of good judgment to say that, look, although disclosure might take away issues of conflict of interest, I am better off not having this at my property. Let it go to some other place. In any case, sorry, the authority doesn't even have a history of hosting events at my place. So if I become Director General and all of a sudden this amount of money is going to be spent at my property, it will raise some eyebrows. So although I can disclose and say that on the face of the law, I have done what is right, in exercising good judgment, can't I let this business pass, go somewhere because I have an interest in this particular property?
Okay.
Now listening to him, for example, he says, well, the figure is not 135, it's 115,000. And it was food and drinks and music and whatever for 500 people. The same person justifies 10,000 for 17 people. You spend 115,000 on food, drinks, music and everything for 500 people. And then 10,000 for food and drinks for 17 people.
The 500 people, the allegation is that that was the estimated number. But the number that actually attended may have been 200. And he says, look, we are 200 as a staff. And I was expecting people to come with their spouses, you know, their girlfriends, boyfriends. Let me add that to him. He said girlfriends. I want to add boyfriends to that. And, you know, all other things. So, I mean, what's our beef really? Is that not money that's, you know, is that too much money for a party for those people? End of year party.
Samson, there might be nothing wrong. I mean, holding end of year parties is something that most organizations do. Yeah. There might be no big deal about it. If they say it's 135 and you spent 115 and it's just justifiable based on numbers and all that. You see, it's how you even communicate it.
Okay.
You know, it's how you communicate it.
So what should happen, if anything at all?
Well, I think, you see, there was one thing that I was expecting to get a response from him. And I think that is gone lost on a lot of people. There was this thing put out as his passport details, which suggested that he was born in 1953, February, and therefore was 65 years old. And people thought that on the basis of that, he should not be in office. Curiously, that issue was not addressed. I have also seen a copy of that passport extract.
I've seen it. I have it right.
Yes, which was the passport issued in 2017, which suggests that he's 65 because he was born in 1953.
Okay. Let me say this. There are people who say they want to use that as a basis to take a certain action. So maybe we can leave that for now since he has not responded to it.
I'm just saying that this is also one of the issues which were in the public domain, which really goes against his occupation of that office per his age. And you see, the worst part is that there's a claim that his official age is 7 years lesser than what is in that passport, which presupposes that, or he's been accused of having engaged in some fraudulent exercise. And so I found that allegation extremely serious. And I thought that it would have been maybe the first thing that you have cleared out of the way before even proceeding to do all these things. And so I was surprised that that issue did not come up in terms of he dealing with the issues.
All right. Thank you, Randy. Okay, so well, I mean, there's nothing to be smiling about and laughing about. But it's interesting. I don't know where you stand. Can you begin from where Randy made that comment about questions of exercise of judgment? I know you are in Parliament. You're a lawyer, successful one. You're a businessman. If there was a business in the company where you are the chair of its board, and there was business would you advise your company to bid for that business?
Something, thanks a lot.
It's a general thing. Yeah.
Randy raised an important point. That point was to the effect that the CEO of Maritime Authority should have responded to certain allegations. I'm sure that on this platform, one major issue is how to communicate, best practices. And I know that he, as a consultant in this field of communication, would not encourage the CEO to have seized that opportunity to respond to everything that is being said about him in the media. It is important to put that position he took in context. Was the press conference called for the purposes of addressing a direct matter that had been raised by a concerned media house or journalist? If so, then the man was right in concentrating on the matter. Now, the other consensus again is that perhaps he didn't approach it rightly, which brings into question the issue of good judgment. Look, the political market, which conjoins its interest with the public views, would not wait for due process. But in our laws, we have also said that we need procedure to determine everything. So it appears as though, as Justice Doche said on Wednesday, that when it suits, we want to call for this. When it doesn't suit, we all keep quiet. So we play the game of convenience. But consistency is key. If any of us here today becomes a victim of a matter, our first response will be that, come on, follow due process. If anybody says anything unto us, to you, Martin, myself, my in-law, my boss here, hey, how do you come by this? So that is our first response. But I agree, the public opinion out there, the level of poverty, people's situations, even the fact that even you are there, somebody may not like you, hearing it, and this world of social media, it is important we adopt a proper approach. Now, let me answer the question of the residents. I think the media did not qualify the residents issue. I will take this opportunity to say that the renovation or whatever works that were done were not done on his private property. I think that has not sunk deeper enough.
I don't think that's a matter of controversy.
Let's
I'm not sure anybody has said it is a private residence.
Let's assume that
it would have been worse.
They made clear that it's an official residence.
Yes.
No. All the reportage, check it. It says residence.
Yes.
I want to qualify
official residence.
It is the official residence.
Duty post.
Yes, it is the official residence.
Okay.
So it is important we get into what led to the amount. I mean, what is the nature of the works and all that. And you yourself put yourself in that situation that, look, you are doing some construction. So you know what it is. So we leave it there. Fortunately, the sector minister was very proactive enough to take the matter up. I, sitting on a board, would even say that perhaps the board should have taken the first step, because this is the chief executive. He reports to his board, and per the enactment that we have, the board have their separate powers. So although the minister has the supervisory powers, the board would have to still do its work in accord with due process. So let's wait for that. At least we've been told that some steps are being taken there.
Okay.
The next point is the removal. Under the PFM Act, removal of a director of a state institution, like a public corporation, what have you, according to the PFM Act, the procedure should be that of the Civil Service Act. The procedure adopted in removing a director of a civil service should be applied mutatis mutandis. That is the law. So, it is important to point out that Mr. President cannot remove him if that is the thing you want to, put across. He's been appointed unless he's acting, and that's a different matter. Dissolution of the board, if the president has the powers to appoint the board, and for good reasons he wants to dissolve the board, that's a different matter. But if you are talking about...
But you are not saying if the president wants you removed from a state entity like that one, he can't do it. If he wants you removed.
Something. If the president wants you removed,
right?
Let's stay away from that phrase.
Okay.
What is the position of the law? The position of the law is that if you are a director of a public corporation, the means of your removal should be in accord with the provisions in the Civil Service Act. Those provisions that are applied in the removal of a director of a state a director in the civil service. So I'm just letting you know the position on removal because you put its removal.
You've spoken about the question of exercise of judgment as in if it applied to you. The Constitution, the Constitution says in Article 284 that a public officer shall not put himself in a position where his personal interests conflicts or is likely to conflict with the performance of the functions of his office. Do you think this should be the guiding principle for public officers when they have private businesses that want to bid for?
Well, I need a little clarification. This issue about the Director General and procedure for sacking and all that. I mean, Alfred Obin Bost was sacked by a letter signed by the Executive Secretary.
That's right.
On behalf of the President.
That's right. Okay.
So how do we say that the President cannot?
Okay, you are done asking your question.
Yes.
So I think I would finish in the next minute or two. Yeah.
Right. Now, in the Companies Code, we have provisions for disclosure.
Right.
I would go with Randy's issue on the moral question. And I agree that if you are in the public service, you look at the law, you look at issues of public concerns, the media reaction, political issues related to it, because you would have a political activist who will praise a court if the court makes a judgment which favors his party or favors a partisan interest, but will be quick to make an ethnocentric comment or will be quick to condemn the same court if he thinks the court has made a judgment which is unfavorable. So I'm saying that people are inconsistent in the way they approach issues a lot of times.
Okay.
So if the question is, do you have to combine morality with the law? It is the best way. Look at it. It's a thin line to walk. But at the end of the day, because you are in public service, you would want to consider so many factors. Is it that somebody raising it, you would have the best response to it? Is it that it's not going to raise eyebrows and all that? So, I beg to say,
the Transport Ministry, we understand, is setting up a committee to look into it, right? Ask the board to investigate him.
So
okay.
that's
you don't like that? It doesn't sound like you like that idea.
It's not tidy, my
yeah.
It's not tidy? Yeah.
Because at his press conference...
You don't believe the board can be independent?
At his press conference, he kept on referring to the board and saying the board was aware of a lot of the things that the people were complaining about.
Okay.
That those things were sanctioned by the board itself.
Okay.
So you might have a situation where even the actions of the board will be subject of the investigation.
Okay.
How then do they...
You don't, Alex, you don't agree that the board should be doing this as by the direction of the ministry?
I've looked at the PFM Act. I've looked at the Public Financial Management Act. I've also looked at the Companies Code.
Okay.
And it depends on the regulations that the establishment may have.
Right.
But I think that ultimate responsibility rests on the board.
Okay.
There is this, some coexistence, some relationship between the board and the sector ministry. The sector ministry can give directives. Yeah. The PFM Act, if there's even a reporting line, every quarter if you don't report, it's even an offense.
Okay.
The sector minister can request for some information.
Okay.
If you want to go and borrow, the board, after passing that resolution, would need the approval of the minister.
Okay.
It's there in the law.
All right.
So you would have to look at the relationship. It doesn't mean you are wholly independent of.
Okay, we've done some 35 minutes. It was supposed to be very brief, but unfortunately, we've done some 35 minutes. I need to go for my next break. So quickly on whether you don't endorse the board looking at it?
At all. And even before I expatiate on that, the disclosure that this Honorable is referring to is also specifically provided for in their Act, the Ghana Maritime Authority Act, Section 9. So it's a requirement that he discloses and then doesn't participate. So apart from the Companies Act, it's specifically in here. And it says that a member who fails to disclose an interest under subsection 1 shall be removed from the board. So it's expressed.
Yes, right. So if it is found out that he didn't make the disclosure,
exactly,
he's subject to being removed.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. So yes, quickly, your final words.
To be honest, I'm not comfortable with the idea of the board conducting any inquiry on this matter. I sometimes like to encourage the media and civil society groups, especially those who are so interested in this matter. They should move one step forward, petition the SRAJ, and get SRAJ to trigger an investigation into this matter. The board, nobody is stopping them, but I'm not too sure anybody is going to take what they say that much serious, considering the overlapping elements involved. And for our public officers, it was simple. I didn't even know about the act, to be honest, and I think that's a stronger thing. But the SRAJ has these guidelines on conflict of interest to assist public officials identify, manage, and resolve conflict of interest situations. And it's good if some of them can get themselves, on this. If you go to disclosure of conflicting interest, it says whenever a conflict of interest situation occurs or is likely to occur, the public official must make a disclosure of the situation as provided by law or as follows, by law there, what to disclose. Assets, liabilities, gifts, conflicting interests, outside employment, and NGO activities. How to disclose in writing, verbal, and surrounding the item. When to disclose, as soon as a conflict of interest situation occurs or is likely to occur, and when in doubt. To whom? SRAJ, superior officer, stroke head of institution, an ethics committee or compliance officer or similar setup within the institution. Then it gives resolution and management of conflict of interest situations. Conflict of interest may be resolved or managed by one or more of several ways, including the following: divestment or liquidation of the interest by the public official, detachment of the public official from involvement in affected decision-making process, restriction of access by the affected public official to particular information, transfer of the public official to duty in a non-conflicting function, rearrangement of the public official's duties and responsibilities, resignation of the public official from the conflicting private capacity function, and resignation of the public official from the public office. And a lot more here, which I think public officers should assess. They should assess.
Do you endorse, though, we're breaking, forgive me, do you endorse Randy's question of exercise of judgment, which, Alex appears to agree with, however, also pointing to the law of disclosure?
That's a personal thing that you can exercise.
Because there's a situation where it appears to be a bit widespread.
Yes, I'm saying
within people who are holding public office and companies that they are associated with and connected with, bidding for contracts within those offices and winnings.
Yes,
always.
but that is why these guidelines were provided. If you go in here, there are many of them, but otherwise there's a personal judgment that you can also make. Look, let's take another side, and I'm playing a devil's advocate. Assuming this gentleman asked his hotel not to bail for free, what would we be saying?
You'll be applauded.
Thank you.
In fact, sometimes the consideration is that you want your own entity to come in so that you can halve the cost or something like that.
Yes, he could even have given discount, but it doesn't appear that's what happened. So, good judgment. Yes, you can exercise that personal good judgment. Otherwise, be guided by this.
And it doesn't look like it's a one-off.
Okay.
If you look at the fact that 2 or 3 separate events and then same source, it creates the impression in the minds of the public that you're using, the position to get business for your private interest.
Thank you very much. We take a break here. This was supposed to be brief. We have done some 30+ minutes on it. When we return, we will try again to see how we can be very brief with KNUST and botched resolution to it, and then the University of Education Winneba matters. We'll put the two together and see how we can briefly deal with that, and then return to spend some substantial time on government's inertia, that is the allegation, to prosecuting Kwesi Nyantakyi. We'll be right back.